Franz Masiddo, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Given that the Philippines is among the world's most flood-prone countries, what do you think has been the biggest barrier to effective flood control?
Biggest barrier, like as in just
Infrastructure, government, maybe the climate?
say is probably the government. Most of the time, when it comes to like flood projects, like it was stated that like the flood projects was obviously to help with all the floods that's happening in the Philippines, but because of the recklessness of all of the government and all the tax that has been taken from all of the people, that just it just kind of just ruined like just the whole country as a whole. So like, how do I put this? Yeah, like just of course the government was always like, saying all this about like flood projects and like flood project this, project that, but really in reality it's not really like, it's not being put in place. It's more just trying to take advantage of the citizens of the country and use that money for something else that might not even help the country. So like obviously like the lifestyle of government families and stuff like, I don't know, new mall buildings maybe, like that money isn't even supposed to be used for that. It's like that money should be used to like help the country, as the Philippines is still a developing country. It's not as like Japan or Singapore, but yeah, it's just we wouldn't have been like a developing country if the government was this corrupt. That's why I believe the barrier between all this would definitely be government.
So what you're talking about is this corruption that exists within the governmental system in the country. So they're taking tax from the citizens with this predisposed idea to the people who are giving the tax, like this is going to go towards flood projects in order to prevent the
quote unquote flood projects.
To go towards flood projects that was supposed to improve the infrastructure of the surrounding area, because obviously the Philippines being so flood prone.
Yeah, very.
It's a easy escape hatch for them to say like, this is the reason we're taking tax from you, whereas they're putting it towards something else. I mean, we saw this with the UK Safety Act, for example. Where we've been told that the reason for it was in order to stop children from going online on provocative websites that they're not supposed to be on, effectively. But instead, there's deeper issues at hand about where our data is going and who gets access to these sort of things, or whether it's to stop the boat migrants from entering the country. It's like there's so many other reasons why they may be putting it in, but it's advertised as a protection for our children. And this is sort of the exact same issue that's going on here. It's like, this is the protection for you for stopping this natural disaster entering the country. But instead, this tax is going towards different areas.
Yeah, basically. That's basically about it.
The reports have suggested that a lot of the money is going to 9,855 flood projects since 2022. Yet, many communities still feel overwhelmed, regardless of this money going towards flood projects. How do you explain this gap between the budget and what's actually happening?
I believe from the amount of money that has been taken from the taxpayers for the flood projects, I believe that their budget would have had like quite a high budget, but because of the way that they've acted towards the money that they've took from taxpayers or from all the citizens, the gap is, ooh. When you mean like budgeting gap, do you mean like,
as in, you kind of touched on it in the previous question. Where else do you think this money would be going besides the flood project?
The flood projects? The money would most likely to be used for like the lavish lifestyles of like the government families, like I mentioned, and you know, like you see it all over in social media, all these like Nepo babies, you know, flaunting their wealth, showing off their new handbags. Like there was a recording or a video or live video, I think, something like that, on ABC News, which is like the Philippines news company. But yeah, they mentioned that they were exposing one of the government people about how many cars they owned, and they were explaining like they demanded to ask what brand of these cars were. So we're talking about Rolls Royce, I think like 2 Rolls Royces, like Ferraris, Lambos, like all your like really luxury cars. And I think they said about 12-ish cars they have within their garage, which is like, when I heard that, obviously I can't speak Tagalog fluently, but also I can pick up like some bits and pieces. But when I heard that they had like that, like 2-digit number of cars, I was like, whoa. So you're telling me that could have been used to help the country to be a bit more developed, but instead we're using that for cars. Do you know what I mean? Like, then they always like promote a lot of, you know, like all like the Nepo babies, obviously, because since they're always in, what do you call it? They're always like advertisements and stuff, you know, for like fashion brands. And you can just tell that they, like, even in their social media accounts, I think one of their names, I believe, is called Claudine. I believe. I can't remember, but it begins with a C. But she, because of the amount of backlash of the government and stuff like that, and the flood projects, the ghost flood projects, she got called out, obviously, because obviously she's a Nepo baby, and she's just obviously she hasn't posted anything about the floods, like not even addressing the situation.
How do you define a Nepo baby? What is that?
A Nepo baby, just someone who's just been given everything, and you know, like just someone who hasn't been like having like proper developed ish as a person. I don't know much about.
I kind of get what you.
Yeah, it's just mostly just, I don't know, because since they obviously grown up from a rich family, they don't have enough, like, you know, exploration, like a bit more freedom. They just there's like, they stay within that like richness and that wealth from, you know, from their parents' money. And obviously they just, you know, they ask stuff and everything. So that's what I probably would say about Nepo babies. Might be wrong, but I think I got some gist of it, maybe. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that does significantly rewire people's brains. Growing up in a sort of environment where you ask for something and you're given it, there's no sense of hardship.
Exactly, yeah.
Determination or discipline. It's sort of just handed to you.
Yeah, like easily. It's like just sliding it in and, you know, it's right there and I can just grab it. Whilst other people, like all the people who are living in that poverty, because like also there's the city and then there's also the province, and like all the provinces, you got like run down houses, a lot of them that are, and then some houses that are just barely hanging in there, and like I came across a video, and it was like an elderly man. He was giving like some speech about saying, like, you don't know how hard it is to be living in a place like this. If you were to be here, if you were to be in our situation, you wouldn't last a day. So it's kind of just showing the amount of hardship and like the amount of work they have to put into to help give their family what like their needs, and just what like literally just simple food, sleep, and just stuff to help with their families. And obviously like the floods are coming in, that they're always alert. There's like no sleep for them at all. So they're always, every day is just hard work until like,
Is the problem centering from these individuals who work in the government? They are using taxpayer money to support their lavish lifestyles.
Yeah.
Which means that their children then get lavish lifestyles, and then you get Nepo babies. Is that the sort of process that's going on here?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah.
Is this maybe this sense from the poor of like castigating the rich for having money?
Yeah.
Or is this a castigation of corruption? Because it could be one or the other. Because it could be, yes, the government is corrupt and the money that we're paying in tax is going to these government bodies who are not using it to support what we expect the taxes to be used for. Or is this like people who live in these provinces have lavish lifestyles because they've worked for it, and the children obviously getting the reaping, getting the seeds of the labor of this lifestyle, and it may be linked to the corruption, but maybe not, and it's kind of all been chucked into one. And a lot of people may think just because they're rich means they're corrupt.
Yeah, I think people might have like the wrong idea, but because of like the situation that happens in the Philippines, it's just mainly just more of like the corruption, and just more of like given like they have the money, but they're not putting in it for like a good cause. They're not putting stuff into it, like maybe making like hosting a charity, and maybe creating a team to like aid people who are in such terrible situations. But instead it's just more of showing off all their wealth, showing off the new clothes, the new Gucci, the new whatever Louis Vuitton that came out. And it's just not that. To me, I don't think it's more of coming from like poverty to coming from poverty to like a more of a wealthy lifestyle. It's just more of I wouldn't like to say this is like a luck-based thing, but it's more of just wherever you were born, it's more of just whatever opportunity comes at you, you have to grab it, rather than just I'm probably just rambling on something that's completely different, but so like because like most people, like your average citizen, just coming out in the store, they're doing everything they can to provide people. So like your local shops and stuff like that, selling let's say like packets of seasonings or stuff like that. Like it'd be the most simplest things they could sell, and you could just see that obviously they still enjoy their job. Like whatever opportunity comes at them, they'll obviously they'll take it, rather from like in a wealthy like family point of view. It's more just like you try to be like the center of attention, if that makes sense. It's like obviously there's like a hierarchy between like the rich and the poor and stuff like that, but it's just more of, because Filipinos, we always have like a sense of, you know, wanting to give people. So like, for example,
It's like your culture.
yeah. For example, if, let's say, if I brought you to like a function of just like Filipinos, they will encourage you to like eat. It's basically Filipinos giving. And you can tell from like the wealthy family, they don't like to give. They more like to just, you know, hey, look at this, look what I'm wearing. And then, you know, kind of trying to bring you down. Or some might, you know, be motivated to be like, oh, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna get there. But obviously in like the country state, it's just more of, you know, trying to find that opportunity. And in the Philippines, it's very hard to find that opportunity to be able to get to where they are. So watching all of the wealthy families not doing anything, not giving to the people of the Philippines to provide them, like, to give them at least a boost from their what their situation is living in, like a boost to get out of that situation. It's just absolutely ridiculous just to see that everyone's just either on the same wavelength or low. Like Philippines is right here, like all just your average Filipino, you know, just working hard, and then you just see all of the other people like just at the top, and it's just, you know.
I understand this idea of culture.
Yeah.
Because it's very much the same in Indian culture as well. We like to give. We like to, if you go and visit someone's house, you like to take something for them. If they come to your house, you have to make sure that they eat.
Yeah.
With that though, I can see the disconnection between culture and what's actually happening in these provinces. The rich are not going along with what's expected of Philippine culture. It's like the same way if they were to walk into your house wearing shoes instead of taking them off.
Yeah.
So it seems like a dishonor to the culture that is brought up in that country.
Mm.
On the same hand though, it reminds me of the situation in the UK where people are saying tax the rich.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I understand it. I understand this idea that, oh, they have a lot of money, you should tax them. But I think it's different when you have someone who's worked up for the money. Does that mean that the harder that you work, the more that you get taxed? Because what that meant in the UK was that people who became millionaires or started large companies and businesses ended up leaving the UK. Ended being a negative for the country itself, because you had a fallen entrepreneurs in the country.
Yeah.
Because they would leave because they'd get taxed too much. I wonder how much of a positive it would be for the Philippines if you do end up getting into this idea of taxing the rich. And also, to play devil's advocate on that idea, like I understand people who are in lower classes probably need that help and that activation energy to get them out of the position that they're in. But the same way when you walk past a homeless person, your mum might tell you like, oh, don't give them money, or like, depending on the culture, but it's like you could assume that you don't know where that money's going, so it's much better to give them food and stuff like that. So
Exactly.
in the situation of the Philippines, I don't think it would be better to provide them money or subsidize their way out of poverty, but at least provide basic needs.
Yeah.
I think that's what most developed countries are able to do. Like you do see that in the UK.
Yeah.
Do arrive, it's like you've made it. If you made it into the UK, like you get money, you get a place to stay, you get food, you get basic living standards.
Yeah.
I think, is that what you're touching towards for the Philippines, or is that something that's already provided?
It's something definitely where I'm having my point lead to. But I think for I wasn't born. I've never like experienced it. I know my parents have. So I think if I can say from their point of view, they would rather have that money to be used for bettering the country rather than, because as a lot of people have been like told, or a lot of Filipinos have been told, we're like really good hard workers. So I was like, sometimes every time I think of that, I'm like, is that a stereotype or is this like true? But then kind of like thinking about like my parents, they are very hard workers and they've done everything they've done everything they can to like help provide for me and stuff like that. So obviously I'm very grateful for them. But what was I saying? I forgot.
You were talking about that you haven't grown up in the Philippines. Is there something that they've experienced you want to see from their point of view?
Oh yeah. From their point of view, it's more of they would rather have that. Yeah, they rather have that money to help, country become more developed. Like you see like Japan, like Singapore, or maybe what other countries? Like I don't know. Do you know any other countries?
Japan, Singapore.
Yeah,
it's a good standpoint.
Yeah, like you can just tell like from just how much like they were maintaining everything. They've put money towards stuff that helps their country to be a better place, and like you even tell from like China as well. Like they've been able to gather money to help with like technology and like other purposes rather than having to like show off their wealth and stuff like that. But in terms of the Philippines, it's just you can just like see like even as you see from like in your view when you go into the Philippines, you see all of these like rundown buildings and all these like places where everything's just destroyed and it's just just isn't what you expected or it would be what you expected of like a developing country, but you thought that it might have been something else, maybe from like wherever you've seen from a website before you wanting to travel to the Philippines. But you can just see that the people, they're just they're happy. Like they try to adapt to the lifestyle that they have, and you don't see that. I mean, you do see that. It's just more of trying to maintain that for like hours, days, weeks, months, years, like down the line. Having to every day you wake up, you do your whole routine, obviously, in that kind of like situation, but they're maintaining their happiness throughout, which it just says something a lot compared to like it says a lot from like rich people, where rich people just obviously they get to wake up knowing that they have like shelter and stuff like that. Obviously that's the same with most Filipinos, but obviously when you go like down below level where there's just people just trying to having to like they may have to wake up like 3 a.m. something like that, and try and get the resources they need to help function for the day. So
you make an interesting point. So summarize, it's this dichotomy between the life the rich get to live and the life that the poor get to live. And it seems to me from what you've said, there's this disconnect between understanding what it is like to live down there, and there's also this tendency to appear more luxurious and modern than they are. What's interesting? So in Ireland, the early 1900s, I think, they created buildings which screamed greed. And you could tell by just the way that they were built, it was this sort of copy and paste. Everything was the same. It was built for efficiency and efficacy rather than beauty or something that had depth. And what they were trying to do through building these copy and paste luxury hotels, for example, they were trying to appeal to the rest of the global market. Like, guys, look at our country. We are part of all these higher level GDP markets as well. We can be like you guys. Look at what we have. But it lost its depth, it lost its tradition, its culture within that. So what you're kind of touching on here, which is really interesting, is that there's this perception, there's this idea of flaunting wealth to the rest of the world. You go online, you search up a holiday to Philippines and it looks lovely. And it's this perception that's been created that this is a luxurious, wealthy country.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually go there and you understand the deeper issues at hand, it's not exactly what it seems.
Yeah, basically, like I've seen the video, it was just like showing, like there was like a straight border, like you have like the city, tall buildings, what you expect from a city. And then there's just, from just outside, just right outside, you just see just small shelters of just, houses and stuff like that. Whereas like, obviously whenever you see like shelters, you would see like all of that stuff would have been like a bit more further away down rather than, being a bit more too close to where the city is. But yeah, it just shows that a lot of what you see online doesn't appear to be what you expect in reality. So, because I remember I was, searching up, because obviously I haven't been in the Philippines since 2019. So it's been very long since I went there. And then just looking at all the tourist, like all like, the tourist websites, having to see, I was curious to see what else I could do in the Philippines if I was gonna go there in the future. But you can just see that most of the time is just, they just see it's more of the beaches and the seas and then obviously like the city.
Yeah.
Rather than, actually going to the place and looking around, and you can just see like it just isn't what you expect, obviously, and just more of, like I said, just run down and just like more destroyed, kind of just like rusty and stuff like that,
I understand it, but also from a perspective of wanting tourists into the country, it wouldn't really be effective to advertise all of that.
Yeah.
If you do want people entering the country, because if you did, then you would end up reducing the amount of people who do decide to come into the country.
Yeah.
Which means the sort of the route of income which you get from tourists, you wouldn't get because people wouldn't want to come.
Exactly.
Which would effectively make the country worse. So I get this idea of showing the world that they are someone worth visiting, for example. But then I also understand that what that means is, in order to show them, because it is a developing country, in order to show the world how luxurious they are, they have to have this level of corruption, which means that there's this neglection of poverty in order to augment this luxurious lifestyle. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
What role do you think young people, Gen Z, like you and me, can play in demanding transparency or accountability from the Philippine government in this issue? What can we do as a generation? Like we're now in the generation where our social media has power.
Yeah.
Attention is a currency here. So what is it that you think we could do?
Well, I think us as a generation, we should be exposing the government for all the corruption that they've caused for the country. I've already seen countless TikToks of mainly just making fun of the Nepo babies. So,
Wait.
in regards of their appearance, and also just how they flaunt their wealth and stuff. But I mean, Hellspot doesn't really help, because it's really just giving engagement to their feed, because a lot of people would just, they search up their name and then they want to see what this person is about, why are they all getting this backlash, and then that's just giving them all the engagement stuff. And obviously when you get that amount of engagement, some of them might respond to it, to all like the amount of like comments made about them, but some of them might just completely ignore it and just let it feed on their page and their social media. But like what you said, social media is a very powerful tool and can definitely be used to help expose a lot of the corruption on the government. And I think another thing as well is just being able to promote a lot of the charities being, that's been posted but not giving enough like attention, and all these like all these like aid charities and stuff like that to help out for that basic needs and essentials for for like living, stuff like that. So having to promote that, like you see it a lot from like Gaza and and Yemen and Syria. Like a lot of them always they consistently post about like their situation, or like people from their countries. They consistently post about how what's happening right now. Like all of this is happening, and you can just see that they gain tons and tons of like likes and views, comments, and a lot of people. What a lot of our generation likes to do now is copy and pasting a lot of messages that help with the algorithm.
Okay.
To help try and reach out to a lot of the people who haven't seen this and might help out.
Okay.
I think there's also another situation. It's another corruption issue, situation that's happened around the same time.
Okay.
In Nepal. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I did. Didn't they burn down a government building?
They did, yeah. They basically ruined the whole country because like they got together as a country, obviously separate from all like the government stuff like that, or maybe some of them like ex-government and stuff like that. But everyone destroyed the whole city. You see burnt down cars. You see policemen getting beat up, and it's like, dang, this is really like, it's just so much has happened. Like so much happened in that like time. And then there's also this whenever because they were trying to re-elect a prime minister, so they
did this on Discord.
Yeah, they did it on Discord. Like tons of people were in the Discord call to elect Nepal a prime minister. So like watching that made me realize it's just like, you know what, fair enough. Like they done a lot to try and get their country to like fix what's wrong with their country.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the government as well, they like to cancel or try to block all social media, and that prevents them from trying to get people to notice about the situation, to like less attraction to it. But because the amount of connections and a lot of people, because a lot of Gen Z now, they always use their phones, they always find a way to try and get that information out, and which they did. And that also happened in the Philippines, I assume, because I'm pretty sure I've seen like a comment saying that they blocked a bit of social media for a bit. Maybe I might be wrong. Maybe it's just Nepal. But with that being said, social media is just, I think it's just like the primary tool and the most essential tool in order to promote what has happened throughout, because this has been years of just corruption. It's only now, I think it has been addressed. It's just only now that it's starting to get a lot more serious, because obviously there were the consistent floods, and also because climate change, stuff like that. Like our world is always going to be changing at some point. Every year something might happen around on that year. So just having that in place is just, it's just, being able to like alert the whole of the country about what's happened. So that's
it's an interesting one, because obviously you could see that Nepal all got together in order to deal with the corrupt government. Something that you would expect out of unity is hard to achieve. That's the UK are struggling with it. Like you have Keir Starmer coming around saying that diversity is our biggest strength. which then leads to further problems because you don't start introducing British culture to people entering the country. But I don't know. I think this idea of preventing unity is something that governments may put an eye on, because when you do have unity, you have people actually protesting and actually asking for change, rather than allowing this lifestyle or this lavishness or this corruption to and this disenfranchisement to continue within the country. Well, an interesting question, I guess, could be, given that people understanding this level of corruption and lack of trust in institutions, this level of inequality, I wonder what the after effects would be for Gen Z in terms of trusting communities, not even only in the Philippines, but in other countries as well. What would the trust for charity shops in the UK be like, considering people understand the corruption that could exist? I wonder what the after effects of that could be. What do you think?
After effects, just as in
exactly what I said. There's this lack of trust in. Let me put it like this: when trying to achieve a good thing by removing bad things, if you're not careful, you can remove good things alongside with it. So let me give like a basic example. There was the toxic masculinity, right? In order to get rid of the toxic traits that were plaguing society, people didn't really understand the depth of what was good and what was bad. They just only saw what was bad.
Yeah.
And they assumed that masculinity as a whole was bad. So they decided to sedate that entire thing. But what they didn't realize with that, they lost a lot of the good traits that they valued in masculinity, alongside with getting rid of the bad ones. So with this, the good thing being making everyone aware of the corruption that exists. But what about places where that corruption might not exist, which leads to this lack of trust in those institutions because they've become aware of this corruption that could exist?
That's a very hard question.
Yeah.
It's a very hard question to answer. Actually, it's very difficult. I'm trying to think really hard for this.
I mean, it's one to think about, you know. We can move on to. So, I'm also curious about when these Nepo babies, do they respond to these allegations at all?
They have responded.
What has been the typical responses to these accusations of being Nepo babies?
So, the response was to one of them. It was regarding, like, you know, obviously the response to them not doing anything or like anything to like help promote about the flood projects and the corrupt government and their corrupt, you know, just what they're doing as, like, you know, because obviously they have a huge social media platform. They should be able to, you know, promote it and explain what's happening in our country. But rather, it's more of a disrespectful response to it, which was saying, in the words of her, saying, "It's not my fault you're broke." So that received a lot of backlash, which really, really infuriated the whole country, like the community, like obviously like the community, and obviously a bit of the government as well, because there were certain companies or certain people that were handling that project. Because from what I've seen on the news whenever I was watching it a bit with my family, they were all trying to expose and try to ask so much questions about, like, where are all these like ghost projects? What have you done with them? And what have you done with the money that we've provided to you? And just hearing that. And there's also another, I just remembered there was also another one. They were obviously in, you know, like a room, and then there was they talk about and stuff like that. But another video that was released online and also in the news, it was one of the people that was also helping out for like the flood projects and stuff. She basically said she's enjoying the memes about her. So like, you can just tell, because obviously they were at that point where they were eventually about to get like arrested and stuff like that. Well, people hearing that, you know, coming out from that building and going straight to her car, you can just tell that she might have been just set free from the situation. Like, you can tell she does not care at all and just wants to use that money for herself and whoever's, you know, surround and her circle.
You know, maybe were the protests and the uprising response to the responses? Well, where did these protests come from? Like, there was the $1 trillion march.
Yeah, the trillions were the amount of money that they've lost, they've been lost for the flood projects. So whenever I mentioned about like the taxpayers getting their money used for obviously their lavish lifestyle, that's the amount of money that has been took just for their lifestyle and just for whatever useless projects or whatever useless things that they've obviously been using that money for. The trillion, it was supposed to be a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
But because the amount of built up anger from the people, they've decided to go and fight the police for it. But there's a lot of videos online. A lot of them were just like kind of just laughing. And I think most of them were just more about like the violence, following the crowd kind of thing. I think it was kind of similar to one of the protests back in where I live in Northern Ireland. They were just there. It wasn't even for a cause. It was more than just for violence and just straight racism, stuff like that. Like in the Philippines, you just see all these like edited videos of just like, you know, of them protesting and jokingly, you know. And apparently, I think about like 200 during that time. I think there was like 200 arrests, I think, because they were causing a lot of damage and a lot of too much violence. Also, like there's how far you can go, and most of the people that went to go beyond that limit. And then, but yeah, that was supposed to be like a peaceful protest, but instead it was more just straight, kind of more borderline to like actual violence. So I feel like it, but then again, there's also that thing of a lot of people agree that Vansh could be a way of, you know, helping, trying to get that message out and like strike fear. And then there's also obviously the peaceful protest where people just want to shout out, have a lot of people and just sort of shout out they shout out their protest. Like I think there's also another video I've seen as well. They went to one of the government people's houses, and they were just throwing just straight cow turd on them. They were just straight.
What's that?
Just
cow turd.
Turd, yeah, bro. Just straight cow turd, throwing all that, just smear it on their wall, and they were just. You can just tell from like their voice that they're just really angry. They were just, you know, straight cursing them, just straight. It was just a lot. It was a lot to just hear from them. You can just obviously tell they're just angry.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
You know, if you were to design a March 2.0, for the next generation or for this one, what would the what would your approach be, considering social media is an option here? I don't know, apps, audits, communities.
Yeah.
What would your approach be?
My approach, I think for the foundation part of it, I would say obviously just try to get the spread, like obviously since most Filipinos obviously, like, you know, a lot of them actually were able to go and live somewhere else rather than stay in the country. I think what I would say is try and promote a creation of protests from different parts of the countries where all the Filipinos are. Most of the Filipinos that you would see are probably either in the UK or in the US. So I would say probably just promote what's going on and then ask them to promote that in their country, because then that means we have multiple countries that obviously not the country but like the people in, like with the people, you know, like I think it because honestly I never started a protest, you know, so it's a little bit awkward, but I would say probably I think it could potentially have a voice heard out to the government of them to see if they could, you know, provide potentially, because obviously there are always countries provide.
Yeah.
Most of the time when I hear provide, I hear mostly about like war, rather like more just weapons, more aircraft, stuff like that. And you don't hear enough more about, well, I mean there is, I'm pretty sure you've seen this about the Palestinian humanitarian aid. I think they were in a boat and then they got stopped by Israeli forces. I think, you know, Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, she they were well, not put down. They were stopped because obviously, and then one of them I think chucked their phone out or something like that, because that contained probably like information, stuff like that, so they didn't want to give it to the Israeli forces. So yeah, because they weren't even there to do harm. They were just here to provide aid and food and stuff like that to Palestinians. But because of the Israeli forces, they just decided not to do it, and they kind of held them on hostage. So when you think of that in more sense, just like in general now, you don't really hear enough more about aid and stuff like that. I think it's more whenever you hear stuff getting traded off, it's more just either just mainly just like firearms and more just weapons and stuff like that to be used for their military power for all the countries that's being sent to. But yeah.
It's unfortunate because we've basically run out of time, but I feel like there's so much else that we could go into. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Really appreciate you, man.
That's I try my best to explain it because
you did a good job. I think that was a good conversation. I think more awareness to this sort of thing, like even for me, you know, would be nice. But yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Awesome.